You could set a goal, but unless you have a plan, a strategy, or a system to get there, it's just a dream. So for example, if your health slipped, you don't need more willpower or motivation. You need a routine. If work felt reactive, you don't need more effort. You need planning systems. If money felt tight, you don't need more income alone. You need visibility and tracking. Systems create outcomes, but motivation doesn't. Hello and welcome back to the very first episode of the Beauty Industry Leaders podcast for 2026. I'm your host, Sammy Kennedy. Now, man, let's just talk about December for a moment. I know you're in the beauty industry and I'm technically in the hospitality and events industry. For coaching, December is like the quietest time of the year because everyone else is busy in their businesses. But when it comes to the beauty industry, all my clients are working hard in their businesses, servicing all their summer clients, their events, special occasions, Christmas, New Year's, all of that. And I'm down in Albany running Wild West Bowling, and we are just chock-a-blocked with Christmas functions, tourists, school holidays, all the things, you name it. And so sometimes when you're in the middle of all of that, it's really hard to actually take a moment and reflect on everything that you've achieved or you've worked towards or worked through in the year. And something that I've learned over time is that if you can plan your next year in business ahead of the busy season, you'll be set up for success for the next year onwards. But if you're someone who has been busy, burnt out, or had a million other things going on, I just want to give you a moment of peace that it's okay. It's not the end of the world. There is still time for you to do this rather than throw away the potential success of this year because you feel like you're already falling behind. What I'm about to show you in this episode is how I like to reflect on my previous year so I can set up the next year for success. And what I do is I do this process once a year, but I kind of do it more in October, November before I hit that busy season. And then I also have started implementing this process quarterly so I can start reflecting on each quarter, my performance, my results, are there things that need to be improved? And by implementing this system or this process into both my personal life and my business, I have found that the amount of growth and just an upwards trajectory in different areas of habits, financial success, leadership, I've just started to skyrocket rather than waiting until the end of the year and writing some New Year's resolutions and maybe sticking to them for 2 to 3 months and then giving up. I've actually found that doing this has completely changed everything. So let's talk about how you can do your annual review properly without it feeling overwhelming. So the goal of this is to extract data from your life so you can make better decisions next year. The first thing I like to do is to start with evidence and not emotions. So before you reflect, you need proof. So the easiest way for me to do this is that I look through my camera roll because I have so many different things going on. I usually forget what's happened in that year. There might be some big milestones that I remember, but then in between all of that, I actually forget the smaller wins. And it's important that you recognize those because if you can't recognize the smaller wins, then how will you ever feel or appreciate the big ones? So open up your camera roll and scroll month by month. So I want you to write down January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. And then for each month, write down what you worked on, where you traveled, if you did go anywhere, or any significant events, launches, projects, moments, things that happened, or anything that felt heavy, exciting, stressful, or expansive. Your camera roll doesn't lie. It shows you what actually happened, not what you think happened. So this helps give you an objective timeline of the year. And this is a beautiful way for you to actually remember all the things that you were able to do, you were able to work on, some things that you overcame, some awesome achievements. Instead of just looking at 2025 and being like, oh, that was a really hard year, I'm done with it, I'm ready for 2026, you can actually pick apart what worked well, what went wrong, what were the lessons you learned, and make it more of a valuable experience for you to reflect on. The next step is for you to extract wins, milestones, and moments that really stretched you or helped you grow. So this is when you switch from documenting to analyzing. So what you want to do is go back through each of those months and identify what were the wins and achievements, whether they were big or small. What were the milestones that you hit? What were the moments you pushed yourself outside of your comfort zone? What decisions required courage, risk, or leadership? Now, the key is to not actually downplay these. You want to be unhumble in this area because for you, it's actually about recognizing what you're working towards, recognizing what you're achieving. And this is how you find the evidence and the proof to overcome your imposter syndrome. If it stretched you, if it expanded you, if it helped you grow, it counts. This step builds self-trust and shows you where your growth actually came from. Now, once you've moved through that, step 3 is all about identifying gaps and design systems, not goals. And this is where I've got it wrong. This is where many of you will also get it wrong until you realize, what do I want to do better next year? What are my goals? What am I working towards? That's vague. And it's great to have an endpoint in mind, but the real success will come from looking at where did things break down? What felt chaotic, rushed, or draining? What relied too heavily on motivation instead of structure? And so from there, you want to design systems that actually support the version of you that you're becoming. And the reason I say this is because you could set a goal, but unless you have a plan, a strategy, or a system to get there, it's just a dream. So for example, if your health slipped, you don't need more willpower or motivation. You need a routine. If work felt reactive, you don't need more effort. You need planning systems. If money felt tight, you don't need more income alone. You need visibility and tracking. Systems create outcomes, but motivation doesn't. Now, once we've got all of those things down packed, we then want to move into step 4, which is locking in the lessons that you're taking forward. So this is the part that we turn all of your experience into wisdom. So what you want to do is write out the biggest lessons that you learned last year, realizations that changed how you think or operate, moments that shifted your standards, boundaries, or identity. And really ask yourself, what did this year teach me about myself? What am I no longer available for? What do I want to take forward and protect next year? This is how you develop your non-negotiables moving forward. Once we're clear on all the lessons and the things that we're actually being intentional about moving forward into the next year, step 5 is about zooming out and planning the next 12 months properly. So this is how you move from that reflection piece to actually developing your strategy. So what you want to do is audit your calendar, your finances, your commitments. Map out the next 12 months at a high level. So block in holidays, rest time, launches, events, and key dates first. This actually helps prevent burnout before it starts. So something that I found myself doing was always doing all these events, traveling here, traveling there for this campaign, this launch, and I would just burn myself out. But now I've actually gone the opposite way where I block out where I want to have my holidays, and then I have my 6 to 7 working weeks, and then I have 1 to 2 weeks off. And so this is actually allowing me to create a system where I can work, do a short sprint, have that milestone goal, and then rest and recharge. Now, for you, you might have a different system that works for your energy levels, your business, your structure and strategy. But for me, that's what's working. And the reason why I do that is because I'm in a highly creative industry. I have to creatively problem solve. I do creative marketing without having that rest, without having that time away from the business, without filling my cup back up. I just crash hard and it's not sustainable for me. So being able to look at where you do your holidays first and putting yourself first, then looking at, okay, what are we working towards? Are there launches? Are there commitments? Do I need to do any travel for work? Are we going to do some upskilling? That's when you add all of that in. So once all the big rocks are in, you then can add recurring habits and routines into your calendar. You can schedule daily or weekly tasks that support your goals. And you can build your habits into your environment so you don't have to think about them. So this is where you go nuclear. You stop hoping things will happen and you start designing your life intentionally. So one of the tips that has really helped me that I want to pass on to you is getting Google Calendar. And what I do is I block out my calendar in different colors and I have different areas of my life and I set up recurring events. So I've got a recurring event for when I wake up. I've got a recurring event for when I go to the gym. I've got a recurring event for lunchtime. I have a once a week money date, which is on a Friday morning. So that is scheduled. So every Friday I go through, I reconcile transactions, I track things in my spreadsheets. I've got podcasting days. So in 2025, I was chasing my tail a lot, trying to get podcast episodes done whenever I had spare time. But because my goal is to intentionally grow the podcast, the way that things have shifted is that now I've got Thursday and Friday dedicated towards the podcast. So can you see how now when I'm more intentional about what I want, then I have to actually build the routine, the tasks, the habits into my life that are actually going to help move me closer towards achieving that goal. So with you, I want you to do an audit of your life and I want you to set yourself up for success by actually scheduling in these things. So if 2025 was a bad year for you in staying consistent with marketing, then instead of just looking for that spare time in your week to do your marketing, I want you to intentionally block out time and map out when you're going to do it. Because when you start doing that and you create space, you can actually take action on it. And when you take action on it, you get incredible results. So by doing this whole process, you're going to stop repeating the same year on a loop. You'll make decisions faster and with more clarity. You'll build confidence because you trust your planning. Like you are intentionally planning how you want to spend your year, how you want to spend your time, how you want to show up, rather than reactively letting all these things happen to you and then just trying to deal with it on the day and breaking down. You will enter the new year calm, prepared, and grounded. And like I was saying before, like this isn't a once a year activity either. I really encourage you to do this process for 2025, but then get into the habit of doing it quarterly. So at the end of each quarter, you block out the time in your calendar and you go through and do a review because you can't improve what you're not reviewing or tracking or measuring. So I sat down and I did this for myself. And I don't just solely focus on business. I also like to look at my personal life because a lot of the time, I think, as entrepreneurs and small business owners, we get so caught up in all the business achievements and all the things that we're doing and revenue or bookings, and it kind of just takes away the fun. And so the importance is for you to reflect other areas of your life that you've had wins or accomplishments. So January, I actually made the decision to close down all group coaching and solely focus on supporting my business owners in a one-on-one capacity. It was actually a huge transition and shift, but the results have been incredible. And it's a decision that now looking back almost 12 months later, I knew was the right one for me and it has worked out. So that's really nice to know. February, I said goodbye to my Forester and I upgraded to a Mazda CX-5, which is such a win. Having a new car has definitely, well, it's not new, it's like a 2019 model, but definitely newer than what I'd previously had. That was just such a milestone moment to celebrate. I never even thought I was going to buy a new car until I completely ran mine into the ground. But when I got the car bill back and they were like, oh, it's going to be about $3,000 to fix it, and my car's only worth, $3,000 to $5,000, there was no point. So I'm grateful that I have a new car. In February, I also did a PR workshop for a day, and that really helped teach me some new skills about personal branding, developing relationships with people in the media, understanding how the media actually works. And on top of that, we also had a Melbourne trip, Nick and I, which was really nice. March, I took Nick down to Margaret River for his birthday. I actually remember specifically I booked in a ropes course and zip lining for something to push us out of our comfort zone. And I didn't think I had a fear of heights until I did it, and I felt like I was literally going to die. Like, he was very supportive and kept helping me get through the course. But oh my gosh, that was a big personal growth moment because my mind was just like, nah, I can't do this. And just pushing through that was very interesting. And then from the PR skills that I'd learned in the previous month, I actually was featured in news.com.au on how I went from university dropout to making $500,000 in 14 weeks, which was pretty cool. April was such an awesome time because Jade, one of my friends, she owns Lovey Lash Wholesale. We've been talking on the phone for like 2 to 3 hours a day for the last, 2 or 3 years. And I finally went to Sydney and got to stay with her, which was really nice. And we got to go to her warehouse. We did a few meetings. I recorded a podcast episode. Like there was a bunch of things that happened over in Sydney. And it was nice to know that my business allows me to travel with work so that I could do that. I also did a branding shoot and completely revamped the Beauty Industry Leaders podcast cover, which since then I've also updated one more time. But that branding shoot was really a level up from anything else that I'd had before. And then on the other end of business, Wild West Bowling, we had our very first event. I managed to sell out tickets in 72 hours and we had 150 attendees, which was really cool. But an interesting lesson from that was also that you could put so much effort into organizing an event. And when you look at the costs, the staff required, the money made, the profit at the end of the day, like we had a very valuable lesson about the effort versus reward. And I spoke about this on another podcast episode. Like for us, we could make the same amount that we made in the event by just running a normal day without having to have 10 staff on board to do wristbands and run bucking bull and do all these other things. So to be honest with you, looking back and doing this activity, that was a huge reminder for me about how you run your business in relation to effort versus reward, profitability, and also like planning, prepping, organization. There's a lot that goes into events, which had led me to later on in May decide that I was going to run a retreat. But nevertheless, so May was a really cool month because we introduced Ellie as a co-host on the podcast. And then Nick and I went to Vietnam for a month. So we went to Ho Chi Minh, then visited Hoi An, Da Nang, Phong Nha, Ninh Binh, Hanoi, Halong Bay, Sapa, then back to Hanoi. Then we ended up flying back to Perth in early June. And our industry, well, I say I'm talking about the beauty industry, but then also Wild West Bowling is entertainment, hospitality, that kind of realm. It's always the busiest time of year in that December, New Year's, Christmas period. And I know I never get days off during that time. So I've kind of made it a thing that moving forward, somewhere between May to August, having a month off as my summer holiday in a Southeast Asian country where it's nice weather, not in the winter of Australia, is a really nice way for me to actually take that time off and recover because, if you know your year's going to be packed out, and I encourage you to think about this as well, if you know, October, November, December, they're your busiest months, then it doesn't mean you never get to go on holiday. It just means that you should restructure your year so that there are other times in the year when you can take that time off and actually reap the rewards of all the hard things that you're working towards in business, or actually take a moment to just pause and fill up your cup. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because when I do profitable pricing in a one-on-one setting, one of the things that we actually work through is figuring out how many hours you're open a week and then how many hours per month and then how many weeks per year. So we can calculate what your costs are and everything like that. And it's wild because I talk to these women and their response to me is, I only take 2 weeks off. So they're working 50 weeks a year. And when you ask people why do they start their business, they usually say for freedom. And so you're working more than you would in a 9 to 5 and you're taking less time off and you're just not enjoying the freedom of having a business. Now, I understand like financially, sometimes you've got to work towards things and it's not always realistic, especially in those early stages to take that time off. But I'm a true believer that you should be planning on how you can incorporate that into your business model. Like if you never take time off, if you work every single day of the week, like it's just not sustainable. And I see this happening with my parents at bowling. We're kind of in that position where we're looking for a good crew, more so like transitioning away from casual to part-time or full-time workers that can really support the business because when you're the owners, like when we're all working, it's anywhere from, 8 to 9 a.m. till potentially 10 to 10:30 p.m. when you're finally leaving after you've done cleanup. And as business owners, we are the ones who are usually carrying the weight of everything. And if you want the business to grow or you want the business to be an asset for you, you can't be working in it 24/7. And so being able to figure out how you can structure your business, how you can have the right team members and support systems in place so that it's not so heavily reliant on you, that is the key to being able to take that time off or being able to recharge. Because sometimes we find ourselves in these situations where we're doing things that we probably don't need to be doing. We could probably hire someone else, or we could outsource it, or we could have a VA doing it. But the control freak within us is like, oh my gosh, we've got to keep doing all these things because that's what we do as small business owners. But I promise you, if you want to grow $1 million business, that mindset is going to keep you stuck in being unprofitable, burnt out, and unhappy. So thinking about, I guess, moving into this year, like what are the things that you want to do differently with your energy levels? And what do you want to have that sometimes when you see other people posting about, or you see this time of year comes up and you're not able to enjoy it, like how could you actually build a system or structure or team to support you so you could? I think that's something that I want to leave you to think about. Now, June was really cool because obviously we had Vietnam still, but came back, and then I got to go to the Australian Hotels Association Expo at Crown to look for potential vendors and new suppliers for Wild West Bowling. So my mum, my dad, my brother and I, we all went. And it was very interesting how that expo is run versus Beauty Expo, because I hadn't really been to expos. But looking at the hospitality industry, there's a lot more variety. There's a lot of alcohol. They're all getting you doing their testers because obviously that's a huge part of hospitality. But just the machinery, the equipment, the way that they do their information sessions, it was really great to go out and network and see what's available. I feel like when I went to Beauty Expo in Sydney, I just felt overwhelmed. Like there was almost too many vendors and options, and it was just hard to actually categorize what's what. It was very spread out. And then a lot of the same thing, which I don't find helpful at all. Like I would much rather know who the expert is in one certain area for a product or a machine or a piece of equipment or training, rather than having everyone selling the same thing. But that's just me. Anyways, let's circle back. So June didn't have anything insanely big happen other than Vietnam and then the expo. July, I was back down in Albany for school holidays to help out. I hit 10,000 downloads on the podcast, which I wouldn't have been able to do without you. So thank you so much for that, because that was a really cool milestone moment. I then, during my travels in Vietnam, had this massive moment of realization when I was in Da Nang staying at the Schiller Monogram. It just hit me. I was like, I need to do a retreat here. This is the venue. This is a place. I'm making it happen. And in July, I officially announced that we're hosting a retreat in Vietnam, which was really cool. We've got some incredible guest speakers. We've got some incredible attendees. It's just going to be such an epic experience. And like I was saying before, like if I would have ever been told by someone, you're going to start a podcast, you're going to host an international retreat, I would have sat there and gone, no way. But to do that within the first couple of years is really, really cool. I also had a bit of a fail, like not an epic fail, but just I didn't put enough time and energy and effort into it. I ran a beta round of Booked, Banked and In Demand, which is an online course that I created, which shares all my strategies about how to grow your business on social media, how to create a sales funnel, like from your Instagram into your booking system, how to get clients, how to actually convert those clients in the DMs, and then how to rebook them and retain them for the long term. And the beta test did really well, but then my biggest problem, and this is a mistake that I made, was that I got so excited about the retreat that I was meant to launch Booked, Banked and In Demand by the time I got back, but it just was not happening because I was so excited about the retreat. And then I never ended up marketing Booked, Banked and In Demand. I ran some podcast ads, but I don't really think it was enough. And I spent this whole month before I went away to Vietnam, like frantically recording and uploading and getting this whole course sorted. And then in the end, I didn't even publicly launch it. Like, it was a very interesting experience. And look, it's something I probably will look at launching more into 2026. But yeah, that was a really powerful lesson about not trying to do too many things at once, because then you just start competing against yourself and you confuse people. And so I should have probably held off promoting for the retreat until later on. And I think I rushed it because I was like, oh, end of financial year, it'll be such a great tax deduction for people. But, that just was not the case at all. So it was really very big learning experience there. And I think moving forward from launches, I have a winning strategy now and I realize where I've gone wrong, and I just need to make sure that I can implement that moving forward and not get distracted by the hype or excitement of something new and shiny. Something in the personal front as well for July was I did my first personal styling session at Q, and I bought some new pieces for my wardrobe. And let me tell you, I have some major money mindset issues from when I was growing up. My mum would always say, we can't afford it. My brother and I wanted cool school shoes and shorts like all the other kids. So Nike and Adidas and all the things. But we never got them. We got Kmart and Big W or Best and Less because that's all we could afford. And I used to work 12-hour days at bowling for a $20 note. And I would save up after 4 or 5 weeks of working there. And then I would finally go buy myself the pair of Nike shoes that I wanted. And coming into being an adult, I never thought I was worthy of spending that money on myself, especially when it came to clothes or it came to material things. And so I've never been that interested in any of it. But what I started to realize is that living in activewear every single day and trying to build an industry-leading brand, especially when I'm in the luxury market as well, the clothing I had just was not fitting for the environments and the perception that I wanted to create. So going and doing that personal styling session, it did feel like it was out of my comfort zone, but it was one of the best things that I've ever done. And if you're someone like me who just, you got some nice clothes in your wardrobe, but you don't really have casual wear, or you're not really sure what you could do to get the most mix and match ratio, or you got some things that look great on models, but then when you put them on, they look terrible, go and book a personal styling session, because it will just help you feel so much more confident. You'll feel elevated, and you'll actually have colors and styles and pieces that will work timelessly for you. For me, it was about buying a capsule wardrobe, investing in pieces that are going to last me for the long term and that actually suit me. And wow, that was honestly a highlight of my year. Such a small thing in the grand scheme of other things that had happened, but really helped me feel more confident and more excited about everything. In August, I went back to Sydney and I caught up with Jade again. I went to Beauty Expo and also had the ABIA Awards. Tara and I stayed together at the Star, and that was an interesting experience. We had so much fun. We definitely went to the cast a couple times and ended up winning some money. I would never go to the cast normally, but we're in Sydney, so who cares? Why not just have some fun? And yeah, I got to meet a lot of you when I was over there, which was so nice. But I think at the same time, it's kind of overwhelming because there's so much going on and there's so many different people and things, and then someone's username or business name, but then you don't know their face. And yeah, I think next year, if I were to go back to Expo and ABR, it would be a lot more strategic with how I organize things rather than just kind of go with the flow or just show up when you want. I think I would probably make more of an effort to actually get more out of that weekend. But at the same time, I really did enjoy just going for the fun of it and not really having anything locked in. But we'll see. And then also, when I got back from Sydney, I hosted my first in-person event for beauty industry leaders, which I was really scared to do. And I think that's because in the past, I'd organized things like social darts where you go to, I forget what the place is called, Flight Club. And, I pay for it in full and then half people don't show up. So I actually made this a paid event, and that just covered the cost of the dinner that I'd organised with the venue. And I ended up having 22 people show up, and it was really lovely. We had a great time. We had some incredible gift bags and sponsors on board, and it made me realise that I'm building something so much bigger than me. And I know I say this a million times, but like, yes, when you're talking into a screen, you can't see who's out there. You don't know who's listening. You don't know if people even care. Like, to just bring all those people together that were important in my life or had been a part of my community or been a client, it was just really beautiful. And that has definitely lit a spark for me to create more networking in-person events moving forward. But it's just understanding how to do it in the right capacity. What kind of areas, like, am I doing it in Perth? Am I doing it over East? Am I doing retreats? So I'm kind of just trialing and testing. Like, if I fail, I fail. I'll learn something. If I win, then that's great. We'll double down on that. But it was really nice to just see that, you know, after doing all these different events, you know, pageants and rodeos and music festivals, like, to just see something go so smoothly and have no issues, it was just a real relief. So obviously been learning something and finally feeling like it's all falling into place. September was such a cool month because this is something I've wanted to do for years. Like, I've really wanted to take my mum on a holiday, and this year it happened. We got to go to Vietnam for her birthday, and I think we ended up doing like 2 weeks together. And from all the places Nick and I went in May, and I've also been to Vietnam again, like for a whole month, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And I was able to just figure out, okay, what are the exact places that we love the most? What are the best activities to do? And, you know, my mum, she does not like making decisions. Like, you ask her something and the answer is, I don't know, you choose. And if you don't know, then it just becomes stressful. So I had a whole itinerary. It was all planned out and we had the best time. It was such a great memory and just a milestone. I feel like, you know, being able to take your parents on a holiday is really cool because my whole family and I have just been through so much, and we've always worked and we never really take time off. And I think being able to like take that time away with each other, and I guess, yeah, like I've said before, we never got to go on holidays when we were growing up. Like, we were always working. So I feel like I'm low-key like catching up on some of the childhood things that I didn't get to experience with my parents. And my mum and dad are officially coming to the Beauty Industry Leaders Retreat, which is really nice. I think they just wanted some time away, and dad wants to be a guest speaker, bless him. So he will be very, very funny and interesting and keep it entertaining for sure. But I don't know, I'm just kind of at this stage where for once, all of the struggle and the hardship and the feeling like you're never getting ahead, it's actually starting to flip for me. And I was, you know, this is a bit of a side quest, but I was reflecting on what it was like growing up and when I moved out of home and everything. And I know cost of living and prices and everything, I guess people feel it more now and they're like, it's all been going up. But my whole childhood and life has always been like that. And I think being addicted to struggle or not knowing any different from that has finally come to serve me now, because all that struggle and all that hard time and not being able to afford things regardless of if it was a cost of living crisis or not, it's really helped strengthen my mindset of what's possible and how to build and how to get ahead of that. So yeah, that's also another very interesting realization. In October, I went to Melbourne with Nick again. We started designing the new podcast studio. That was a huge shift, like realizing that, oh, okay, maybe one day I will not have to record these podcasts from my apartment. And Jade and I also started designing custom Beauty Industry Leaders merch for the retreat. So that was a big process because, well, communication issues between, you know, the manufacturer. I think the main chick that we talked to, she started going on night shift. And then there's a time difference between Jade, myself, and then the manufacturer. So it's just all over the place. And we had, you know, the notebooks and water bottles, and we had a few issues there. And just trying to get it right. Like, I really take my hat off to people who do product-based businesses and e-commerce, because there's a lot of planning you have to do ahead of time, and also quality checking. And if things, logos, pieces, if everything's in the wrong spots, then that can become an issue. Or, you know, if you don't get a launch or an order done in time, then you fall behind, and having multiple drops planned out ahead of time. It was very interesting. I've loved it, but I definitely don't think that e-commerce or a product-based business is going to be where I ever want to spend my time. I enjoy doing the marketing behind it, but like actually running that as a business. I think I'm more so leaning towards service-based. But who knows? I mean, I was just recently down in Albany and we were selling some Brucey Brahman stubby holders, and we ended up selling, over $1,000 worth, which is really cool. But the effort it takes to get the order and payment and then write the information into a Excel spreadsheet or track it. Well, we don't have Shopify, so that part could be automated by Shopify. But anyways, doing that and then posting it and then making sure that you've got a card to say thank you. There's just so many more pieces to it that I'm like, that's just not the effort versus reward. I don't know if it's there for me. Maybe if I was selling something higher ticket, but I mean, when you're selling something that's $12, it's definitely not worth it. November was a really cool month because one of my clients, she hosted a VIP day in her clinic. So I went in, helped out, took content, and she ended up making $26,775, which for one person is such a success. Like we worked on the strategy together for a couple months beforehand. She went above and beyond. She was very intentional. We curated this incredible experience, and just seeing it all come together, that was really cool. I also did another branding shoot. And then that's when I was like, yes, I need my Forbes level shots. Like I need to get some nice high quality images and really elevate it. And my goodness, my hairdresser, Sarah, she's been with me. She was on the podcast at the very start. She has just been so incredible. Every single event, every photo shoot, she's been there for me. And man, the blowout she did on my hair, I'm like, I need to learn how to do my hair like this because this is nice. And Rose from Empress, she was a makeup artist I came across in a collaboration when I was doing bridal modeling. I got her in to do my makeup, and it just was completely different from what I would normally do, but I loved it. And now I'm sitting here going, I really need to watch some YouTube videos and up level how I do my makeup and hair moving into 2026, because I don't know, I think I did do it when I was maybe 15 or 16, and then I've just been doing the same thing over and over again, and I've never really invested much more time. So I don't know, if you do personal hairstyling workshops or makeup classes, hit me up because I'm keen to learn. I'm keen to do something different. I think rather than focusing so much on business, I'm definitely keen to take on some new skills. I even want to learn sewing. I feel like sewing, if I could learn how to sew, I don't know, that would be really helpful because every time I buy clothes, they're too long for me and I need to fix them up. So I don't know, if you know how to do sewing and you want to go do sewing classes together or you want to teach me, I'm so down. The other things that happen, this was a huge milestone moment. Went to the Australian Hospitality Awards for Excellence in WA, and we took out themed venue of the year. That was just so epic. Walking up onto the stage, getting the award. The crowd was just talking the whole way through. No one even cared. And then we called them out and said, you're not even listening. And then I was a bit lit and I said, take your glass, put it up, give us a cheers. And I got the biggest reaction out of the night. That was just that was my moment. And yeah, I just think that is a huge thing to showcase all the hard work that our whole team, our family, we had people all over Albany just coming up to us and saying congratulations on the award. It was just that recognition for, the tagline I use is it took us 18 years to become an overnight success. That was just a huge milestone moment. And if you look back at that being the big picture, but the things we had to overcome, almost going bankrupt, just trying to get our doors open, getting health checks approved, getting builders and construction things signed off. It was just such a nightmare to get our doors open. But 12 months on to see that is the result of the hard work and the sacrifices we made. Yeah, amazing. Huge milestone moment. I also started building the podcast studio. So I have my family come up. I had Nick help out. I had Moselle come in and help clean up the chairs after my dad put them into this black sawdust, which was not a vibe. I'm really grateful that, this is another lesson from this year, is that this year I realized I can't do everything on my own. And I've always been quite proud about, doing things on my own and having independence and not needing help. But this year, I have slowly started to intentionally lean on my family, my friends. Obviously, Nick, he is incredible. He's always there, but just actually asking for help, or if people offer it, not just saying, oh, no, I can do it. If they're offering to help and they want to be a part of it, who am I to cut them out just because I'm like, oh no, I have to do it on my own, you know? So I don't know. Like I've said in another podcast, going from always being the person to help everyone else to this year slowly having that come back to me, I've actually had to really, change that mental barrier of like, no, don't worry. Like I don't know. Anyways, getting sidetracked here. The last cool thing about November was Nick and I celebrated our 2-year anniversary. And I have to just really laugh because sometimes life is just crazy. Like Nick and I met on a plane. And, the night before that I was meant to get on that plane, I changed my seats because I wanted to sit by myself. I didn't want to sit next to anyone. And, that seat was taken by the window. There was no one in between. So I was like, I'll get this aisle seat. And we started talking and, to think that we met on a plane and then now we're 2 years into our relationship. And I've met a few people that have also met on planes and they've been married and it's, been the most romantic relationship. I'm like, oh, this is like really some movie scene level stuff. So yeah, Plain Boy and I were celebrating 2 years. Many more years to come as well, which is exciting. And then December, I sold all my shares, which is a huge risk. I was like so scared, but I bought up silver and then I made 6K profit in 3 weeks. So I was like, this is worth it. And now I'm learning a lot more about how silver and metals and everything work. And that's going to be a big focus for this year. I climbed Bluff Knoll. Man, I complained. I struggled. I couldn't breathe, almost had an asthma attack and died, but I climbed it. We got to the top. I want to say it was beautiful views, but it honestly was not. It was like fog. We couldn't see anything. And, they always say it's about the journey, not the destination. And, it was, I don't know, that was just one of those moments where I was like, it wasn't really worth it. I'm, glad I pushed myself, but was it worth it? No, it wasn't. Would I do it again? Probably not for another decade. So, at least I did something hard and I pushed myself out of my comfort zone, but there's not really one piece of me that actually enjoyed it or felt accomplished doing it. So I guess that's a bit more of a raw, real thing. Like hiking, I don't know. I don't know if that's my vibe or not. Maybe in another country where there's pristine views, but like that view, it wasn't even worth it. So I don't know. Bluff Knoll, I'll conquer you in another decade maybe. I also went down to Albany for 3 weeks to spend time with my family. And when I say spend time, we're working at bowling. Like that's the only time I hang out with my family. But it was cool because this year was the first year that we actually had Christmas Eve off in like 10 years because we weren't running a rodeo or a music festival or anything like that. So all my clients that do consulting and coaching with me, December is their busiest time of year. So I had a few calls in the first 2 weeks, but then after that, I actually just blocked off that time and I was at bowling. And then I did a bit of planning in between and podcasts when I could. But I was completely wrecked by the end of it. Like Christmas Day, we were just napping all day because we've had so many Christmas functions on and school holidays and all the things. So I don't know. I actually really enjoyed going down to Albany this time and spending that time just seeing everything come together. And we also had a huge exciting thing happen where we purchased the property for Wild West Bowling. So we officially own the business and the freehold, which when you know that, you're willing to work the harder, longer hours because you know that it's going to pay off in the long term. Like you actually own all of it. So that was really cool. And then just looking through Buzzsprout today, the podcast is finishing up 2025 with 17,500 downloads since we started. So not quite 20K, but I am more than happy with 17.5 because I wasn't even realistic about when I was going to hit 10. I just kind of thought, oh, it's just happened and I have no expectations. So everything now I'm like, wow, that's actually really cool, but how can I push it more? So that's my yearly recap. I know I didn't really speak that much about coaching and consulting because it's been happening all year round. Like I've had so many incredible one-on-one clients. I've had a couple product-based businesses and e-commerce that I've worked with, which was new. I've had a lot more skin clinics and aesthetic or injectable businesses. I've had a fair few online course creators, educators, and trainers come to me and mapping out that side of the strategy. Actually, to be honest, that's been majority of my clients this year. Like I would say 70% of those people have been coming to me because they're wanting to make that transition off the tools and into education. And like full transparency, this year has been really hard for me figuring out where I actually fit within all of this. Like, where do I fit within the beauty industry? Do I want to be in the beauty industry? What clients do I want to work with in the beauty industry? And, I've come from this completely abstract childhood of, entertainment, hospitality, events. And I don't know, I just kind of stayed in the beauty industry because that was the first business that I owned outside of the family business. But then I had this massive imposter syndrome because like all the knowledge and the skills and the strategies I learned wasn't from beauty. It was taking the best of other industries and things that I've learned and then applying that into beauty. So I don't know. I think I've been in this really weird time where I'm trying to figure out who I am and who I want to serve and where I want to go. And for now, the coaching and consulting side of things is definitely what I love doing, but I've opened myself up to clients outside of the beauty industry, which has been really cool. So I've got a bookkeeper that I'm working with. I've got a PT that I'm working with. And like having these different businesses, it's just, I don't know, I feel like it's more me. I think beauty is somewhere where I naturally thrive because I've been in it and I understand it and it's more niched and specialized. But because I've got these different skills in different areas, I do honestly feel like sometime within the next, anywhere from 1 to 3 years, I eventually will pivot and make that shift. Unless I feel that, beauty industry leaders is my absolute passion and I want to put everything into it. But I don't know, I think I'm being called to serve more people outside of just beauty and also, teach more than just business strategy because there's a lot of things that I've learned. There's connections that I've made. There's been rooms I've been invited into that I just want to be able to share with more people who would actually action and benefit from that. So I don't know. That's actually been a huge thing that I haven't really openly spoken about, but this year, the main focus is to go all in and figure out, is this truly my passion or is there a pivot or area where I might more so focus? And, that might be a different section or clientele of the industry, or it might be having higher things. I think I'm definitely moving away from working with sole traders and working with bigger teams that want to do big, crazy things, or like moving towards people who want to be in that education and training space. And it makes sense, right? Like it's beauty industry leaders. So it's people who are trying to lead the industry, who are innovating, who are wanting the most. And I think that's where my passion and my excitement comes from, not from kind of shrinking and just doing, the bare minimum to keep a business running. I'm like, I want to do big, crazy shit. So yeah, that's kind of something that I've realized throughout this whole year. And we'll see where it takes me. Because you know how I am. I'll literally tell you everything that's going on, like whether it's bowling, whether it's my personal life, whether it's beauty industry leaders. Like this platform has given me a space to be really honest and share a lot more than what I would want to on social media, because social media lasts like 15 to 30 seconds on a reel. Like I can't talk about real situations and things that are going on behind the scenes in 30 seconds. So if you've been here and you've been listening, thank you. What I actually did really well this year was I worked with a mindset coach. I worked through a lot of patterns of self-sabotage and I improved my money mindset a lot. And I highly recommend that everyone does this because it just makes you a better person. You get out of your own way, you get more shit done. I really dialed in my researching, planning, and strategizing with both business moves and investments. I found that this year was one of those years where I really pulled back on everything and built better systems in business. And the hard thing about building systems is that it feels really slow and painful. Like you're not seeing as much growth as you'd like, but you've got a really strong foundation to scale in the next year. So the other thing that I've learned this year is to not always prioritize opportunities and business over my relationship. I've found that balance between nurturing both. And lastly, this is something I never thought I'd say, but I became a much better planner and a lot more organized. Like I have calendars and strategies and timelines. These are all things that really overwhelmed me and I never thought I'd be good at, but I finally came to. So that's been a huge win. Now, what I want to improve more in 2026 would be more consistency with meal prep, gym, and diet. This year, kind of was probably about like 40% consistent because travel really threw it off, like just being away in Albany and then being in another country and then, traveling cities. It was just, I'd get back for like a week, recover, train for 2 weeks and then be gone again. And that is something that next year I want to really dial in. I highly, highly, highly hate the amount of screen time I've been spending on my phone. Like less doom scrolling, more presence, not taking my phone with me everywhere. That is something that I want to actively work on. Not overcommitting to too many things at once and better boundaries to saying no to things that don't align. Definitely felt that at the end of 2025, that's been a huge thing that I've been shifting into, which also leads me to my next point, thinking about a decision for 24 hours before giving an answer. Now, my theme or the thing that I intentionally am focusing on in 2026 is less stress, less pressure, and less burnout. Those are 3 things that my nervous system is addicted to because it doesn't know any different. And I've been meditating more. I've been blocking out time to just do nothing and process. I need to go on more walks. Like there's just so many things that I could be doing for myself instead of sitting behind my laptop and working on the next thing. So that's a huge intentional goal to work on. Hitting consistent 10K steps, recovery, mobility, and stretching, not just working out and then being like, oh, I'm done, actually taking the time to move my body. And this really impacts my scoliosis and then how I sleep as well and the pain I'm in. So definitely that's been something I've been saying for years, but I'm incorporating that already. So that's great. Getting my gut health and skin in check. This has been an ongoing thing and it ultimately comes back to stress. So being able to get my stress levels down, that is high at the priority list because if I'm less stressed, I'm getting less inflammation in my body. I'm a better person. I'm a better girlfriend. I'm a better daughter. I'm a better coach. Like I just got to get my stress levels down, honestly. And then I really am aiming for more walks along the coast and watching sunsets, reading before bed and having no phones after 6. So if you're trying to message me and I don't get back to you, that's probably why. And then also increasing my weekly pay so I can put more towards saving and investing. So from this, the systems that I'm working towards is each morning I set out to check my calendar, what's coming up, and then the 3 action items that I'm working on for that day and any other tasks that I can follow on through once I've got those 3 main things done. 10K steps daily, gym 4 times per week, consistent meal prep. So by that, we'll have a meal prep on Sundays. So we do our food shopping on Saturday or Sundays, cleaning the apartment, 1 book or audio book per month. So I can listen to audiobooks in the gym or I can read them or also do it before bed so that I can wind down. Make sure that I do a date night each swing with Nick when he's back so that we actually prioritize our relationship because when he's working away and I'm traveling, we're doing all these things, it's actually important that we spend that quality time together. No phones, no talk about business, and just enjoy each other's presence. We also are doing a monthly finance and life review. So we go through like our personal achievements, professional, relationship wins, and then any areas for improvement. And then outside of that, I've got a few things in business, like Fridays are my finance days. So tracking every single day. At the end of each day, I put it into a spreadsheet, what I've spent money on, what money's come in, and then also checking my investments, and then also looking at cleaning the apartment. That's a huge one. I usually get so busy that I just like throw on clothes and then get changed and then rush off to the next meeting. And I just leave it a mess and then I clean it once at the end of the week. But just doing little things like every single day to keep it clean, that's a huge thing that I am incorporating in. And then every quarter, doing a quarterly review on business performance, doing a check-in with my accountant. And for my health, it's literally just setting up all these alarms on my phone. So I take my supplements and I make sure I do this. And with our food shopping, we are looking at getting butcher crowds so that we get healthier meats and stuff. And then also food. I don't know what we're doing about food. I think we are looking at Woolworths click and collects if we don't have time so that we're not going and rushing and getting something like takeaway. I don't feel like I'm going to have any takeaway next year. I'm not really a takeaway girly. It just gives me too much IBS pain. So the goal is to meal prep all year round and then just have a couple date nights here and there. But I don't know. I just really don't want to have any junk food. It just If you saw how I was after having like KFC, you would understand. But anyways, those are like the systems. I don't know. I feel like out of everything that I've said today, this is my real life application of doing this activity that I started off with at the start of this episode. And so it's obviously easier if you have a notebook and you're writing it down. But the beauty of doing this whole activity is that you'll start to have ideas or realizations or moments that happen throughout, just like I've had when doing my own one in this podcast. And I want you to also think about the goals you're working towards, the steps that you're going to take to achieve them, and the milestones and celebrations you're going to have as you're doing them. Because the more planning and intentional time you put into creating the plan or the process, the better results that you're going to get. And I used to be that person who thought, oh, you know what? I'll just wing it and it'll work out anyways. And it did, but it never worked out as much as it could have if I actually took the time to plan and create a strategy. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode, to listen to my experience. I really hope that you have learned something or you've related or something's just helped you figure out what you're going to do differently moving into this year so that you can get better results and you can move closer towards what it is you want out of life, whether it's restructuring your business, whether it's pivoting, whether it's focusing on learning a new skill, whether it's building a better routine. You are more than capable of doing this. And it's not too late. It's never too late. Fuck a New Year's resolution. Like, create the habit for life. If you're planning to do something short term, like it's like 75 hard. You see these people go hard for 75 days and then the day they finish, they drink lots of alcohol and have junk food. Same with bodybuilding. Like, this is not about a short stint. This is about looking at your previous year, looking at the habits, looking at what you achieved, looking at the lessons, and then building, because those 1% incremental changes will ultimately compound and build you the dream life that you truly want. So please have a listen back to this if you need to, especially at the start where I'm going through the whole process that I use. And if you've done this yourself and you've had some huge realizations or some things that you want to work towards in 2026, I'd love to hear them. Please send me a DM on Instagram at Sammy Kennedy Coach and we can celebrate together. Or if you're looking for someone that can help you implement a strategy and build the actual business and the lifestyle that you want, I'm also taking on a select few one-on-one clients by application only for January and February. So if that's something that you're looking towards doing, you can book in a strategy session link in the show notes and let's see if we're a good fit for each other. But other than that, have an amazing week. Happy New Year. And I look forward to catching you in the next episode. Bye.
Audience exclusive.